the small research station floated quietly around the third moon of a distant planet called Kepler 4 for to see. It was a peaceful place where smart alien scientists called the Vorthok worked every day. These aliens looked nothing like humans. They were small, with large eyes and gentle faces. They spent their time studying strange materials from space that could change how energy worked. Dr. Vorthalin was the head scientist at this station. He was older than most Vorthok, with gray markings on his skin that showed his wisdom. On this day, he sat at his computer screen looking at numbers and charts like he did every morning. The readings were normal, showing the exotic matter behaving as expected. Everything seemed perfect in their quiet corner of the galaxy. But then, something changed. Dr. Vorthalin's screen started flashing red warnings. His heart began beating faster as he saw massive energy readings appearing on his sensors. These weren't normal ships or asteroids. These were huge, powerful vessels coming out of hyperspace right near their peaceful station. The Vorthok had never built weapons. They believed in science and learning, not fighting. Their people had lived in peace for thousands of years. They had tools for research, computers for studying, and machines for experiments, but nothing that could hurt anyone. Now this was their way of life, and it had always worked for them. Through his telescope, Dr. Vorthalin could see the approaching ships clearly now. They were nothing like the gentle, rounded vessels his people built. These ships looked angry and dangerous, with sharp edges and dark metal hulls. Bright red symbols were painted on their sides, symbols he recognized with growing fear. These were the marks of the Drake III Empire, a group of alien warriors who took over planets by force. The Drake III were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors. They traveled from system to system, demanding that other species bow down to them. If anyone refused, the Drake III would attack with their powerful weapons. They had destroyed entire civilizations who dared to say no to their demands. Dr. Vorthalin quickly called all the other scientists to the main control room. There were only 12 Vorthok on the station, all of them researchers who had never seen real violence in their lives. They gathered around him, their large eyes wide with worry as they looked at the threatening ships on the main screen. Tension. Vorthok's station came a harsh electronic voice through their communication system. The voice was cold and commanding, speaking in broken Vorthok language. The system now belongs to the Drake III Empire. You will surrender all your research on exotic matter. You will submit to imperial rule. You have 1 standard hour to comply. Dr. Vorthalin looked at his fellow scientists. They had spent decades working on their research. The exotic matter they studied could change everything. It could power entire planets or help ships travel faster than light. But in the wrong hands, it could also become a terrible weapon that could destroy worlds. And we cannot give them this knowledge, Dr. Vorthalin said quietly to his team. If the Drake III get our research, they will use it to hurt innocent people across the galaxy. The other scientists nodded. Even though they were scared, they knew he was right. Their research was meant to help everyone, not to make the Drake III Empire stronger. When the hour was up, Dr. Vorthalin sent back his answer. We refuse. The attack began immediately. Bright red energy beams shot out from the Drake III ships, like lightning bolts. The first blast hit the station's outer ring, where the living quarters were located. The explosion shook the entire station, throwing the scientists to the floor. Alarms started screaming as air began leaking into space through the holes in the hull. More energy beams followed, each one destroying another part of their home. The Vorthok scientists ran through the corridors, trying to reach the emergency shelters in the center of the station. Behind them, their laboratories and libraries were being blown apart. Years of careful research disappearing in seconds. Dr. Vorthalin made it to the communication center just as another blast hit nearby. His hands shook as he worked at the controls, trying to send out an emergency message before it was too late. The communication array was already damaged, sparks flying from broken wires and cracked screens. With his last bit of power, he activated the emergency beacon and broadcast a simple message across all frequencies. This is Research Station. Kepler 4 for to see. We are under attack by the Drake III Empire. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Just as he finished the message, Another energy beam hit the communication array directly. The explosion threw him backward as the entire system exploded in brilliant white fire. The distress call was sent. But now they had no way to know if anyone had heard it. The remaining Vorthok huddled together in the central habitat module, the only part of their station still working. Outside, Drake's theory soldiers were boarding their home, taking everything valuable and making the scientists their prisoners. 3 weeks had passed since Dr. Vorthalan sent his desperate message into the darkness of space. The signal traveled at the speed of light, crossing empty systems and dead worlds, searching for anyone who might care about a small group of scientists. Under attack, most alien species in the galaxy had their own problems to worry about. When they received distress calls from strangers, they would usually just record the message in their computers and forget about it. Getting involved in other people's fights was expensive and dangerous. Why risk your own ships and soldiers for people you had never met? But this particular signal was about to reach a very different kind of species. The distress call finally arrived at the edge of human space, where Captain Jake Morrison was commanding the warship called THS Vengeance. Jake was a tough man in his 40s, with short brown hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. He had fought in 3 major wars and seen things that would give most people nightmares. Jake was sitting in his captain's chair, drinking coffee and reading reports, when Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez came running up to him. Amy was young and smart, one of the best communications officers in the human fleet. Her job was to listen to all the radio signals coming from across the galaxy and decide which ones were important. "Captain Morrison," Sir Amy said, holding a computer tablet in her hands. "We just received this message. I think you need to see it right away." Jake took the tablet and read the translated message from the Vorthok research station. The words were simple but heartbreaking. A peaceful group of scientists asking for help as their home was being destroyed. Most species would have just filed this message away and forgotten about it. But humans were different. "Sir," Amy continued, "Admiral Thompson is requesting an immediate conference with you. He wants to talk right now." Jake nodded and walked to the main communications center. Within seconds, the large screen in front of him lit up, showing the face of Admiral Mark Thompson. Thompson was the commander of the entire Third Fleet, one of humanity's most powerful military forces. Admiral Thompson was an older man with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. Those lines came from years of making difficult decisions and carrying the weight of command. But his eyes were still sharp and determined. Other species in the galaxy knew his name and feared it. When Admiral Thompson showed up somewhere, it usually meant trouble for the bad guys. "Morrison," the Admiral said, without wasting time on pleasantries, "you've seen the distress call from the Kepler system?" "Yes, sir. Just reviewed it. Looks like a small research station under attack by Drake 3 forces. The station is probably already destroyed by now, sir. It's been 3 weeks since they sent the message." Most military commanders would have agreed. 3 weeks was a long time in a battle. The scientists were probably already dead or captured. It would be logical to assume the situation was over and move on to more important matters. But Admiral Thompson's face showed a different kind of thinking. "Responding, Morrison. Full fleet deployment. I want every Supreme warship ready." "For immediate departure?" Jake felt his eyes widen in surprise. "Sir, that's 12 Supreme warships for what appears to be a minor raiding operation. The entire Third Fleet for a single research station." The Supreme warships were humanity's most advanced and powerful vessels. Each one cost more than some planets' entire military budgets. They were designed to fight entire enemy fleets, not chase down small raiding parties. Using 12 of them for one rescue mission seemed like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. But Admiral Thompson's expression didn't change. His voice became even more serious as he explained the decision that would shock the galaxy. "Captain Morrison, it's a distress call. We don't ignore distress calls. Ever." His words carried the full weight of human military tradition. "I don't care if it's one person or 1 million people asking for help. I don't care how far away they are or what species they belong to. When someone calls for help, we answer." Was something that made humans unique in the galaxy. Other species would calculate the costs and benefits. They would think about politics and trade agreements. They would wonder what they might gain from helping strangers. Humans just heard someone asking for help, and that was enough. Prep the Third Fleet, Admiral Thompson continued. I want all ships ready for hyperspace jump in 6 hours. We're going to show the Drake Theory Empire what happens when they attack innocent people. Jake Morrison felt a grim smile cross his face. He had served under Admiral Thompson for 5 years, and he knew that look in the old man's eyes. It was the same expression Thompson had worn when they rescued those colonists from pirates, and when they stopped that slave trading operation near the Rigel system. Yes, sir, Jake replied. The galaxy is about to learn something new about humanity. Yes. The communication ended. Jake turned to his crew. They had work to do. Within hours, the most powerful fleet humanity had ever assembled would be jumping across the galaxy to answer a cry for help from complete strangers. And when they arrived, the Drake Theory Empire was going to discover why humans had become legendary among the few species who had fought them before. The rescue was coming. The 12 human warships moved through hyperspace like ghosts, traveling faster than the speed of light toward a destination that was weeks away for normal ships. Inside the THS Vengeance, Commander Lisa Carter walked through the weapon decks, checking every system personally. Lisa was a weapons expert who had spent 15 years learning how to make things explode very efficiently. The Supreme warships were unlike anything else in the galaxy. While other species built their military vessels to do one job well, humans had created something much more ambitious. Each ship was basically a floating city that could fight, repair itself, survive on its own for years without ever needing to return home. Every plasma cannon is running at full capacity, Lisa reported to Captain Morrison as she finished her inspection. The railguns are loaded and ready. Even our missile manufacturing system is working perfectly. Well, that last part would have shocked most alien species. The human ships could actually build their own ammunition while traveling through space. If they ran out of missiles during a battle, the ship's internal factories could make more in just a few hours. This meant human fleets could fight much longer than anyone expected. Chief Petty Officer Tom Walker sat at his station, surrounded by dozens of glowing screens. Tom was responsible for one of humanity's most secret and powerful technologies, the quantum communication system that let all 12 ships think and act like a single massive organism. Quantum link with fleet AI is stable, Tom reported, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. All 12 ships reading green across the board. The AI systems are talking to each other perfectly. This was something no other species had figured out how to do. Each human warship had an artificial intelligence that was almost as smart as a person. But when the ships worked together, their AI systems could link up and share information instantly. This meant that what one ship learned, all ships knew immediately. If one ship discovered an enemy weakness, every other ship could use that information right away. While the fleet traveled toward their destination, long-range sensors were constantly scanning ahead, trying to see what they would find when they arrived. The news was not good. Lieutenant Rodriguez brought the latest sensor reports to Captain Morrison in his private office. Her face was serious as she handed him the datapad. Sir, the situation is much worse than we thought, she said, quietly. This wasn't just a quick raid that ended 3 weeks ago. The Drake Theory have turned this into a full military occupation. Morrison studied the numbers on his screen and felt his stomach drop. The original distress call had mentioned a few attacking ships, but the sensor data showed something much more dangerous. Over 300 Drake Theory vessels, he read aloud, plus additional ships from criminal organizations that probably showed up after hearing about easy profits. This was how the galaxy often worked. When a strong military force like the Drake Theory attacked a peaceful target, other bad actors would arrive like vultures. Pirates, slavers, and weapons dealers would come to take advantage of the chaos and steal whatever they could. Morrison immediately called for an emergency meeting with Admiral Thompson and all the ship captains. Within minutes, holographic images of the other 11 captains appeared around the conference table on the flagship. Admiral Thompson looked at the sensor data with the same calm expression he always wore, but everyone in the room could feel the tension. This was no longer a simple rescue mission. This was going to be a real war. Admiral Captain Morrison said carefully, "We're looking at odds of 30 to 1 against us. Maybe we should call for reinforcements from the first or second fleets." The other captains nodded. It would be the smart, logical thing to do. Even human supreme warships had limits. 300 enemy vessels was far beyond what 12 ships should attempt to fight. But Admiral Thompson studied the tactical display showing the enemy positions around the Vorthok system. His weathered fingers traced the locations where Drake III ships had set up blockades and mining operations. "How long would it take to get reinforcements here?" he asked. "At least 6 weeks, sir," replied Captain Chen from the THS Retribution. "Maybe 8 weeks, if they're engaged in other operations." Admiral Thompson was quiet for a long moment. Everyone waited for his decision, knowing that whatever he chose would determine the fate of both the human fleet and any Vorthok scientists who might still be alive. Finally, the Admiral spoke, his voice carrying the certainty that had made him legendary. "Throughout human space, the Vorthok won't survive long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Every day we wait is another day those people suffer under Drake's III occupation. We go in now, or we don't go in at all." Captain Morrison felt a familiar mixture of fear and excitement. This was going to be the most dangerous battle any of them had ever fought. But it was also going to show the galaxy exactly what human supreme warships could do when they were really tested. "All ships prepare for combat operations," Admiral Thompson announced to the entire fleet. "We're going to rescue those scientists. And we're going to teach the Drake Suri Empire why you should never ignore a human distress call response." The fleet continued through hyperspace, carrying humanity's most advanced weapons toward a battle that would change how the entire galaxy viewed the human species forever. The moment had finally arrived. After days of traveling through hyperspace, the 12 human warships suddenly appeared in the Kepler 442. System-like ghosts materializing from thin air, they dropped out of hyperspace at maximum combat speed, their engines glowing bright blue as they raced toward the occupied system. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the THS Vengeance, watching his tactical display light up with hundreds of red dots representing enemy ships. The Drake theory had spread their forces throughout the system like a spider's web. With patrol groups near every planet and asteroid belt, they clearly thought they owned this place now. "Admiral Thompson to all ships," came the calm voiceover. "The communication system. Implement pattern Delta. Quantum Link is now active. Show them what human ships can do." Pattern Delta was a battle formation that other species would have thought was impossible. Instead of fighting as 12 separate ships, the human fleet would fight as one single organism. The Quantum Link system allowed all the ship AI computers to share information instantly, making decisions faster than any living creature could. The battle began immediately. The human ships didn't waste time with threats or demands for surrender. They simply opened fire with surgical precision on the outer patrol ships that were guarding the system's edge. The first Drake III patrol group never knew what hit them. Bright beams of concentrated energy lanced out from the human ships, striking with perfect accuracy. Within seconds, 6 enemy vessels were nothing but expanding clouds of debris and glowing metal. But the humans weren't fighting like other species. Instead of staying in formation and trading shots, the 12 supreme warships moved like a pack of hunting wolves. They split up, regrouped, and attacked from multiple directions at once, confusing the much larger Drake III force. "Enemy cruiser squadron moving to intercept," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from her sensor station. 24 ships closing on our position." Captain Morrison smiled grimly. "Let them come. Tom, make sure our Quantum Link is sharing targeting data with the Roosevelt and the Washington." Chief Petty Officer Tom Walker's fingers flew over his controls. "Link is solid, Captain. All 3 ships now have identical targeting solutions." This was the terrifying beauty of human fleet tactics. When the enemy fired everything they had at the Vengeance, the ship's adaptive shielding systems didn't just protect that one vessel. The shields analyzed every energy beam, every missile, every type of weapon hitting them. Then they instantly shared that information with all 11 other human ships. Within minutes, the entire human fleet knew exactly how to defend against every weapon the enemy possessed. The Drake 3 squadron that had rushed to attack the Vengeance suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. The human ship's shields seemed to get stronger with each attack. Energy beams that should have caused massive damage barely scratched the hull. Commander Carter, Captain Morrison called to his weapons officer, "Target their command ship." Forward batteries. Lisa Carter had been waiting for this moment. "Aye, sir. All weapons locked on target. Firing now." The Vengeance and her two sister ships focused their firepower, like a magnifying glass focusing sunlight. The combined energy from dozens of weapon systems struck the Drake 3 command vessel at exactly the same moment. The enemy ship's shields collapsed instantly, and the hull began to crack apart under the incredible pressure. But something even more amazing happened next. The human weapon systems began to change themselves during the middle of the battle. The ship's AI computers analyzed what types of attacks were working best, then automatically reconfigured their weapons to be more effective. Plasma cannons that shot energy beams suddenly transformed into railguns that fired metal projectiles. At incredible speeds, missile launchers changed their ammunition types based on what enemy ships they were targeting. The human ships were literally adapting and evolving their fighting style in real time. The Drake 3 had never seen anything like this. They were used to fighting enemies who used the same tactics throughout an entire battle. But the humans were changing their approach every few minutes, always finding new ways to exploit enemy weaknesses. Captain Rodriguez, who commanded the THS Constitution, watched in amazement as her ship's weapons reconfigured themselves for the third time in 1 hour. "I've been in the military for 20 years, she told her crew over the internal communication system, "and I've never seen our ships do anything like this before." The battle raged for 4 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The human ships moved through the enemy formation like sharks swimming through a school of fish. Every time the Drake 3 tried to concentrate their forces, humans would attack from a different direction. Enemy ships began to flee the system as word spread through their communication networks. The mighty Drake's 3 empire, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being defeated by just 12 human vessels. Admiral Thompson watched the tactical display as red dots, representing enemy ships, began disappearing from his screen. Some were destroyed, but most were simply running away as fast as their engines could carry them. "Sir," reported Captain Morrison, during a brief lull in the fighting, "enemy forces are retreating from all positions. We're detecting at least 100 ships jumping to hyperspace." The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. "Let them go, Captain. They'll spread word of what happened here. Sometimes the survivors are more valuable than the casualties." By the end of the 4th hour, the Kepler 442 system belonged to humanity. The massive Drake Story occupation force had been scattered to the winds, and those criminal elements who had come for easy plunder were fleeing toward the outer rim as fast as they could travel. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity didn't just build advanced warships. They built ships that could think, adapt, and fight like living creatures. And when those ships were protecting innocent people, they were virtually unstoppable. The rescue phase of the mission was about to begin. When the smoke cleared and the last enemy ship had fled into hyperspace, Dr. Vorthalon emerged from the damaged research station with tears in his large alien eyes. He had watched his peaceful home being destroyed, seen his colleagues taken prisoner, and spent weeks thinking he would never see freedom again. But now, looking out at the 12 massive human warships floating in space around his station, he could barely believe what had happened. The same vessels that had just torn through hundreds of enemy ships like paper were now moving with gentle precision, positioning themselves to help with rescue operations. The transformation was incredible to witness. Ships that had been firing devastating weapons just hours before were now extending docking tubes and loading ramps. The humans switched from warriors to rescuers so quickly that it seemed like they were completely different people. Lieutenant Colonel Beth Miller stepped off the first shuttle to dock with the research station. Beth was a tough military officer who had spent the last 4 hours coordinating attack patterns and targeting enemy ships. But now she carried medical supplies in her hands and spoke in a soft, reassuring voice to the frightened Vorthok scientists. "Dr. Vorthalin," she said through a translation device, "I'm here to help coordinate the rescue efforts. How many of your people are injured? Do you need immediate medical attention?" The elderly Vorthok scientist looked at this human warrior, who was now acting like a gentle nurse. We have 3 colleagues with serious injuries from the station. Damage. And there are others who were taken to the labor camps on the second moon." Beth immediately spoke into her communication device. "Medical Team 2 Research Station. Priority 1. I want rescue shuttles prepared for prisoner extraction operations on Moon 2. Within minutes, human medical personnel were working alongside Vorthok scientists treating injuries with advanced equipment. The same efficiency and precision the humans had shown in battle was now being used to save lives and repair damage. Dr. Vorthalin watched in amazement as human engineers began fixing his research station. They worked with tools he had never seen before, repairing in hours what he thought would take months to restore. These weren't just soldiers, they were also doctors, engineers, and scientists who genuinely cared about helping others. Admiral Thompson arrived on the station later that day to personally oversee the humanitarian efforts. The Admiral walked through the repaired corridors with Dr. Vorthalin, inspecting the restoration work and making sure everything was being done properly. "Admiral Thompson," Dr. Vorthalin said as they stood in the main laboratory, which had been completely rebuilt, "I must ask you something that I do not understand. Your species traveled across the entire galaxy for complete strangers. You risked 12 of your most advanced warships to save people you had never met. Why would you do this?" Admiral Thompson stopped walking and looked out through the large window at the stars beyond. He was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to explain something that seemed perfectly natural to humans, but apparently seemed strange to other species. "Because you called for help," he said simply, "and we had the ships to answer." Those words were recorded by the station's communication systems, and they would soon be repeated across diplomatic channels throughout the known galaxy. Alien ambassadors would discuss them in their councils. Military leaders would analyze them in their strategy meetings. And ordinary citizens of 100 different species would hear them on their news broadcasts. The Battle of Kepler 442 became the most talked about military engagement in recent galactic history, not because of its size, there had been much larger battles before, but because of what it revealed about humanity's character and capabilities. Species that had dismissed humans as insignificant newcomers were now quietly reviewing their entire defense strategies. Military advisors across the galaxy were asking the same questions. If 12 human ships could defeat 300 Drake 3 vessels, what could a full human fleet accomplish? More importantly, would humanity use that power to conquer others or to protect them? The Vorthok Coalition became the first alien government to formally ally with humanity. In a ceremony broadcast across their territory, they signed a mutual defense treaty and agreed to share their exotic matter research with human scientists. The Vorthok had learned that humans were the kind of allies worth having, but the real change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before Kepler 442, humans were seen as an interesting but relatively unimportant species, neither particularly advanced nor especially numerous. They were newcomers who had joined galactic society recently and hadn't made much of an impression. Now, everything was different. Government leaders across the galaxy realized that humanity possessed something far more dangerous than advanced weapons or large fleets. They had the willingness to cross vast distances to fight for complete strangers. Combined with the military capability to win against impossible odds, word spread through the galactic communication networks about what the humans had done. The story was told and retold, growing in detail with each telling. Soon, every species in known space had heard about the 12 human ships that had answered a distress call from strangers and defeated an army. 30 times their size, pirates and raiders began avoiding systems that were known to have friendly relationships with humans. Criminal organizations started warning their members about the risks of attacking anyone who might call for human help. Even the mighty Drake III Empire began treating human territory with new respect. The galaxy had learned something important about humanity that day. Humans didn't just build powerful warships to protect themselves. They built them to protect anyone who asked for help. And in a universe full of predators and conquerors, that made them the most dangerous species of all, not because they wanted to harm others, but because they would stop anyone who tried to harm the innocent. The age of human influence in galactic affairs had truly begun.